I recently moderated a forum hosted by Choose New Jersey on a new federal initiative. It's called Opportunity Zones. Now, this is a program looking to spur economic investment in communities throughout the country. Many of those communities are, in fact, right here in New Jersey. On the panel, we had 4 experts in economic development, real estate, and, of course, opportunity zones. Here now are those interviews. Chris, let me ask you, we just did this forum where in Newark, New Jersey, Choose New Jersey, in fact, put this event together with Governor Murphy and United States Senator Cory Booker talking about opportunity zones. Briefly, if you were to describe to someone who never heard of opportunity zones, how would you briefly, succinctly, but effectively describe them?
It's a private sector tool to do community economic development by identifying specific locations to incentivize private investors to create new jobs, create new mixed-use development, and to amplify quality of life.
How?
By simply giving investors something that they hadn't had before to invest in distressed communities, and that is a tax incentive. If an investor has money in Google or land property, if they actually sell those investments, because we understand the return on investment of that, if they actually said, you know what, I can sell this, but I can't invest in a local community because the tax and the numbers don't work, well, this program provides that incentive by giving them both a tax deduction as well as a potential opportunity to make even more money off that initial investment.
To those who say, come on, is New Jersey that great a place to do business, you say?
Absolutely, and here's why. The way this program is designed is going to require investors to find projects that actually
Opportunity zone
projects and locations that actually can produce a profit. At the end of the day, the investors are not just putting this money in as charity. This is not a charitable contribution.
They're not just trying to do the right thing.
Exactly. This is, hey, how can I make a buck? But actually doing it in a way that actually is targeted to communities that need the resources the most. And let me tell you, based on the survey of interviews that we've done with our membership across the country, we're finding that communities that have transit access, that have a strong employment base and have a diverse economy are probably at the top of the list. And guess what? New Jersey is one of the top of the states where people are looking because they know right now the market is demanding for walkable urban places. There's a need for mixed-use income.
How about our workforce?
You have many great universities, and as well as you have a very vibrant small business incubator space that are tied to the University of Rutgers and many other institutions here. That is your attribute.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey, thank you for having me.
These opportunity zones, what could they mean for a distressed school district, a distressed community struggling to get its sea legs when it comes to economic development?
I mean, I think it finally just means the way out. It's a transformative opportunity to actually allow them to finally exit financial distress, to be like the Newark people remember from 60 years ago. This is one of the tools, and probably the best tool in a long time, to just structurally change the economy such that these cities become the centers of their communities again.
Why is that, Evan? What's in it that makes it? Because there have been other federal initiatives, other federal-state relationships or collaborations that were supposed to make a big difference. What do you think is different here?
So this is just changing the framework of the economy. That's what's unique about it. It's not a new program. It's not something you have to talk to a bureaucrat about to figure out. It's something that's private sector driven and is going to be something that allows for the investors to make the decision as opposed to a bureaucrat making the decision. That's what's categorically different about it.
What advice would you have for urban communities, leaders who may be thinking about this and say, yeah, it's hard to deal with the federal government, state government, bureaucracy, it's tough, you say?
I think it's not tough. The first thing is just to recognize that this is something you can really get your arms around. If you're a city like Newark or Paterson, you're larger, dedicate a staff member to it. If you're a smaller community, like a lot of the ones in South Jersey, band together and try to get enough expertise around it to really participate and just start packaging your projects. I mean, Newark alone has hundreds of projects that this could work for. And so it's just figuring out what they are and then getting to investors.
Thanks, Evan.
Thank you.
Margaret, you know an awful lot about investing. You make tough decisions about where to invest, why you invest. This particular initiative, this federal initiative that Senator Booker was talking about earlier, that the governor was talking about as well, why is it so important?
It's so important because the communities that were selected, and not just the ones that were chosen in New Jersey, but all around the country, are desperately in need of capital. These are places where there are high levels of poverty. It's not getting the private capital they need, and yet at the same time, there are great businesses, there are great projects, there are great opportunities in these communities.
So it's opportunity zones.
Opportunity zones. So these zones, and really this legislation around these zones, is going to be great to encourage the private capital back into those distressed communities that really need it.
It's interesting, you and your colleagues at Goldman, you got to make tough choices, right? You got to say, you pick and choose, you say no to some. What are some of the things that you would be looking for? Like say, we're in Newark. We're taping in Newark at Rutgers, part of the Rutgers campus here in Newark. In a city like Newark, or Jersey City, or Patterson, or Camden, et cetera, what would you be looking for? What are some of the better or best practices?
So Newark's a great example. So Newark's a place where we've already made 22 investments, and what's really drawn us to Newark is a few things. It has great fundamentals. It's part of a very strong regional economy, great corporate anchors, excellent transit, great location within just a regional transportation network, and we've had really strong partners on the ground, both in the private real estate development community, but also our public sector partners in City Hall, in the Economic Development Office. So we have local stakeholders really driving us to the projects that are going to be the most impactful, and the actual partners on the ground to get it done.
Let's break down opportunity zones just a little bit. Steve, are we basically saying that if an organization makes an investment in a community, an identified community, and they stay there for X amount of time and have significant impact on improving the community, what happens as it relates to capital gains taxes that are supposed to be paid to the federal government?
Yeah, so two parts of incentives in this program. The longer you hold an investment in a community as an investor, the better the incentive. So at the beginning, you get an incentive on the capital you roll into the program. That's capital you would have ordinarily had to pay taxes on day one. Now you don't have to pay those taxes until the end of 2026. And when you do, if you held it for long enough, at least 7 years, you get a 15% discount on that tax bill. The second incentive is much bigger. If you invest in a fund that's investing in these communities and you hold your stake for 10 years or more, and you earn money on that investment over that 10 years, that new gain is tax-free. And so it's a huge incentive to really change the mindset of where investors are looking at their next potential investment.
You know what's interesting about this? Again, it's interesting talking about two United States senators, one Democrat, one Republican, both agree on this. It is rare that Democrats and Republicans in Washington agree on anything and get something done together. So what does that say, not only about the senators who did this, particularly Senator Booker here in New Jersey, but opportunity zones? What is it that brings folks together?
Well, you're totally right that it's rare. It was maybe the only really bipartisan piece of tax reform, which obviously has been pretty controversial.
This was, in fact, opportunity zones, part of the 2017 federal tax law changes.
That's right, passed at the end of last year, and a lot of people didn't know about it until recently because of events like these. Senator Booker and Senator Scott have worked together on a lot of issues. They work together on apprenticeships, they work together on criminal justice reform, they work together on this. So they're unique, and senators and finding a partnership to work across the aisle. But listen, I think more and more, and the 2016 election is a great example of that. People are really angry. They're concerned that this story we have in the country that 4% unemployment and record growth and we fixed everything is not the story of a huge chunk of Americans that live in communities that didn't feel any of that. And more our politics are catching up with that reality. And arguably the election of Donald Trump was one of those data points. And I think the fact that this bill passed and got 100 members of Congress from all across the spectrum to support it means that this is something that's penetrating more and more even in Washington.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by New Jersey Sharing Network, Delta Dental of New Jersey, Seton Hall University, the Northward Center, NJM Insurance Group, the New Jersey Education Association, and by New Jersey Resources.